Hi, Khyati ma'am. All the best.
Thank you very much. Very good evening. Am I audible to all?
Yes, yes, perfectly.
Thank you.
Looking very pretty.
Same dress as school.
Good evening, ma'am.
It's exactly 5 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. And
Good
it would
evening.
really be nice if someone could just check on the attendees because it's giving constant notifications with a sound. I don't know how to unmute all the new joinees. Uh, the recording is all on, and there are 24 people who have joined us this evening. Once again, I welcome everyone. There is one setting. Let me just see if that works. If that works, then I can mute all the attendees who come in. Just a moment. Someone's muting me all the time. Please don't mute me. We have to run the show with my mic on. Let us start. A very warm good evening to one and all. Let us start today's session with a prayer. So it's a very short prayer, and just allow me to share my screen.
सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा.
Thank you very much. Was that audible to us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so much, Keshwani ma'am, for that confirmation. And I officially welcome one and all into this session. I begin this session with formally expressing my gratitude to our campus head, Dr. Mrs. Veena Srivastav, and Principal, Mrs. Madhu Vatke, for giving me the opportunity to present such an important topic, competency-based education, item writing, MCQ, to such a brilliant group of educators of Gopi Birla Memorial School, Mumbai. This is your resource person for the evening, Ms. Khyati Dwarkadas. And I formally welcome all of you into today's session. Okay, I am going to begin with the sharing of my screen. But before that, I'll have to stop because I cannot see myself. Just a moment. I will reshare because something just went wrong and I am not visible to me. Here we go. I think now I should be visible to you and to me. And if not, nonetheless, we shall still start. Oh, I don't like it this way. But nonetheless, I shall still start the recording and the training as well. I think I'm visible to you, am I? Am I visible?
Yes,
Yes.
perfect.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. PPT is also visible. Thank you so much for that confirmation. Just that it's taking time to go full screen. All right. The chat is not visible to me. So in case if you wish to chat with me, don't bother until I shut the stop screen sharing. All right. So this is our topic for today, competency-based item writing. And we all know that man always have choices to make. And I just came across this poem by Robert Frost, The Road Not Taken, where a man has to make choices. The protagonist is faced with a choice in life, where he has to decide whether he will do as people have done before him, or if he should try something new. So even in a poetic language, we have choices to make. I came across two more poems. One was Choice by Heck. That was making ethical choices. And this is another one, Choices by Nikki Giovanni, I believe that's the pronunciation. It's a poem that reflects on various choices people make in life and the consequences of those choices. So the poem emphasizes on the importance of making thoughtful and responsible choices, recognizing that the decisions we make shape our lives and impact those around us. So even early man had to make selections, like we know in history. Early man had to forage, make choices, what to eat, how to fend for himself, how to survive. And there were a lot of choices that early man had to make. So MCQ comes from the words multiple choice. And it's an objective response or a multiple choice question. It is a form of an objective assessment in which the person making a choice is asked to select only one correct answer from the choices offered as a list. So here you can see images of Swayamvars, where the girl in the ancient times too had to make a choice of one groom from many. That is also an example of multiple choice. So who on earth came up with this idea of developing multiple choice questions? So the first scientific multiple choice approach was developed by E.L. Thorndike. However, his assistant Benjamin Wood developed the multiple choice test. Thorndike basically came up with the trial and error learning, which was like a number of attempts, number of errors before the correct behavior is learned. It was that kind of a thing where you motivate, explore, reward. But Benjamin Wood came up with this official kind of a, shading the circle kind of an MCQ test where you pencil in the bubbles, what we follow on the OMR sheets today. That was the kind of test right back in those days. You can see the 1800s and up to 1986 that he lived. We've come across these multiple tests that he has created. There was also an MCQ created for computers by Christopher Soule, which was able to evaluate multiple choice examination for computers on a Sharp MZ computer. That was in 1982. So students who are CWSN with dyslexia in particular, or wanted to cope with agricultural subjects, Latin plant names, found it difficult to understand and write, they could use this kind of a computer. The first complete exam in MCQ format was developed at St. Edward's School, Romsey in England. And let us look at this now. MCQs we all are aware of, that Benjamin Bloom came up with this brilliant taxonomy classification of the three domains: cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. And you have 6 domains of the cognitive, which we know is the remember, recall, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. The affective domain has 5 levels, which you can see on your screen: receive, respond, value, organize, characterize. And then there is a 6th domain, psychomotor level, which is your skill-based domain. So using Bloom's taxonomy of all 3 domains also, we have to be able to create good MCQs. And Bloom's taxonomy, as we are all very well aware, you can see all 3 domains on your one single screen here. Though the cognitive domain is the old taxonomy, this cognitive domain taxonomy was revised in 2000 by Crothall and another friend of his. But which is the one that we currently use: remember, understand, apply, analyze, evaluate, and create. That's the new one. And in the psychomotor, you can see imitation, manipulation, develop, precision, articulation, naturalization. Now, what happens is that when you look at these, this is also the use of the hand, that is the psychomotor, head, which is the cognitive, and affective, which is the heart. Gandhiji's Nai Talim or Bunyadi Talim also talks of the same thing. John Dewey's experiential learning also talks of the use of the hand, head, and the heart. You can see here Bloom's taxonomy of the cognitive domain, where from basic recall to putting information together in an innovative way is creating lower order, middle order to higher order. So item writing is an art and a science. It's an art because it needs a lot of practice to master. It cannot be done overnight. There are general guidelines, but no fixed sets of rules or formulae to guarantee a good item. You have to practice it. It's a science because it stimulates thinking, it inspires learning, it helps self-reflection, informs teaching, and there are a set of sound principles and techniques to be followed. And there are these objectives of a sound assessment and the role of questions. So why are we assessing? We are assessing to diagnose the level of proficiency in learning, to identify gaps in learning, identify the appropriate approaches to remediate. So when you assess, diagnose, and remediate, and you redo the cycle of assessment, diagnosis, and remediation, it is assessment for learning. No longer does it become assessment of learning. The role of questions is to meet these key objectives of an assessment. So once again, I am showing you Bloom's taxonomy. This time I am trying to show you the lower order to the higher order thought, where remember and understand are teacher-led questions. Application is the middle order but student-led. Analyze, evaluate, and create, make it higher order student-centered. And if you look at cause-effect relations, that's the analysis stage. If you think of what if, what would happen next, then the evaluate. And something that you create differently. You've learned a concept and you're asking the student to create a new concept based or something new based on the concept learned. That becomes a creation. So lower order, middle order, higher order, we call it lots, mots, and hots. Now, before we start with multiple choice, we have to ask ourselves two basic questions. One, is this topic worth evaluating? Does it test higher cognitive function or just recall? These two questions must be answered. When we talk about understanding questioning skills, we have learned IBL or inquiry-based learning in our very first in-house this year. So we need to understand the kind of questions we have to ask, and for a fact that good questions are purposeful, clear, briefly stated. If you make a long question, the student will forget the concept behind the question and will just unnecessarily be confused. A natural, simply stated conversational English question, incorrect grammatical English, thought-provoking, limited in scope. Only 1 or 2 points in chain of reasoning should be called for. And it should be tailor-made to suit the student's needs. So that is something we are looking for in a good question. See, we also have to keep in mind that our students are like sponges. What we serve them will be soaked in. So if we ask good questions, like a carpenter's toolbox or an electrician's toolbox, the good questions are in our toolbox. When we walk into a class, if you have jumping jacks, we change the tools. But if we have a different class, a very receptive class, a very proactive class, we change the tools. So the right question for the right class at the right time is a very good, effective teacher's toolbox. Now, most questions that we ask as teachers are recall questions. Very, very simple recall questions. Even I would go to my class and say, when did we gain independence? And I would expect the answer 15th August. Recall and fact. Or recite. Comprehension questions require students to show some amount of understanding. Analysis cause the student to apply the comprehension to a new setting. Evaluation, ask the student for his or her belief, opinion, compare and contrast, those kinds. So this is my favorite cartoon and comic strip rather, and I use it in maximum possible places, in maximum possible ways that can be used. So I taught Stripe how to whistle, but nobody heard him whistling. And the teacher says, I said I taught him. I did not say he learned it. So what's the point of teaching him when he didn't learn it? Nothing. The entire point of asking the question of doing the lesson is lost. We need to teach the way a student learns. Similarly, we need to test the learning outcome, and that is what we have set out to achieve, not what the student did not learn. We have to ask student-centered, focused questions. So item and item writing, we did this in our previous workshop too on in-house 9. The task and/or questions that are used to construct tests and examinations are referred to as items. Therefore, we don't call them questions, we call them items. The range of techniques involved in preparing those items are collectively referred to as item writing. And it's not my definition, it's taken from UNESCO. You can see the link below. So there are just 2 basic steps to item writing. Focus on the content topic you wish to assess. Decide on what knowledge or proficiency or cognitive process you want your student to demonstrate. Once again, ask yourself those 2 main questions. What should the student know? So what is my learning outcome? What should the student be able to do? What skill set am I testing? Just 2 questions. Base your item on these 2 questions. There are some features of MCQs. Ask a question or establish a situation for response. MCQs allow valid, reliable, and economical measurement of a wide range of content in a relatively short testing time. Provide 4 response choices or options from which the correct answer only one is selected. A good MCQ will never have multiple correct responses. So look at this, the components of an MCQ. There will be a stem, which is the question statement. It could be with or without images, tables, graphs. Then the 4 options that we provide, the choices provided. 1 will be the correct answer, which we call the key, and 3 incorrect answers are the distractors. Look at the 4 options in this particular question. The Constitution of India was implemented in the year. Now, all the 4 years have had important events in the history of India. So right from 1947 to 1952, there have been something very important in India, and it is quite likely that a student who has not studied well will choose the incorrect answer, will be distracted. So all 4 should be plausible options. They should be very, very near choices that we give the students. Only when the choices are very close to each other will the students get confused, and you will test the real above average student of your class. You will challenge the intelligent if the options are very close. That is testing the competencies. Now the STEM, like I told you earlier, should be clearly worded, written in direct question form, or as an incomplete statement. If you're giving a fill in the blank should come at the end of the statement, preferably. The concept of the STEM should always contain only one concept. and include as much of the item as possible. And it should be free, you know, of all this irrelevant material. I want to know when the Constitution was implemented. I should not give the history geography of the Constitution in that line. Use a negatively stated stem. You know, which of these is not the correct answer? So use a negatively stated stem only when significant learning outcomes require it. And whenever you're using a negative stem, highlight it, underline it, make it bold. So the student who's taking the test knows that a negation has been used. Now the distractors have to be very, very close alternatives. There should be only one correct answer. All the four options should be grammatically consistent and parallel in form. So if I'm asking a date, as a date, if I'm asking a year, all my four options have to be close alternatives, significant dates of the same time period. I can't ask one date of 1800 and one date of 1900 and the third date of 2000. That cannot be an option. The correct answer should appear at each position in almost equal number. So there should be some A's, some B's, some C's, and some D's. But not every answer should be a B or a C. That gives in to guessing. You should vary the length of the key to avoid giving clues. Now, if I have to ask names of people, so I have to write, if I'm writing only surname, then all four options will be surnames. If I am writing full name, name and surname, all four options will be name and surname. If I was to ask names of presidents of India, then I will have to give 4 presidents of India of a particular time period. So maybe in the last 20 years. But if I'm asking you presidents of India and I give you names of one name of a president of India, one name of a movie director, one name of Shah Rukh Khan, one name of Virat Kohli, then I am obviously giving away the correct answer. I have to give all 4 names of the same category of people that I am testing. Place the position of the correct answer in random order. Don't make a pattern of ABCD or DBCA or something, because students will otherwise create a pattern. All of us do inky, pinky, ponky. Students also have that habit. Avoid using none of the above and all of the above or both A and B. These really put off the test takers. These are the last options that we should use. So keep the stems and distractors short. There should be no ambiguity in interpretation. And also ask yourselves this one very important question. You know, we are very fond of picture questions. But can the students answer a question with the stem without looking at an image? If you get your answer as yes, don't give the image. If the answer is no, make sure the image is clear and high definition, HD quality, so the student is not lost about trying to figure out what the image looks like. Now, types of questions, we have multiple choice type question forms and incomplete statements. Possible types of MCQs include simple MCQs with 4 options, complex MCQs where you are either matching or you are giving some kind of statements on top with options below, or the third, which is also my favorite, the assertion and reasoning kind of questions. So let's look at this image, and I would like you to unmute to tell me which word defines this image the most. This is a desert. Which word defines it the most? You may unmute and give your answer.
Oasis.
Yes, it
Cactus.
is oasis, absolutely true. We clap for you. It is OSS in a dessert. Perfect. Thank you for answering it. Now look at this. This is an assertion and reasoning question. And from theory of knowledge, we come to know that there are 6 pramanas, which we have learned in Indian philosophy. And so the 6 pramanas include Pratyaksha Pramana, Upamana, Arthapatti, Anupalabdhi, and many more. So when you look at these, Arthapatti is used for assertion and reasoning kind of questions. Look at the example given. Raj loves to eat food. Raj does not eat during the day. Thus, we can conclude that Raj eats at night. Now, what do we do in assertion and reasoning? We give the first 2 statements and we say, both A and R are true and R is the correct explanation of A. Both A and R are true and R is not the correct explanation of A. A is true and R is false. R is true and A is false. Right? So, Arthapatti from the India theory of knowledge gives us this basic idea of creating assertion and reasoning questions. I thought somebody had a question for me. If you do have a question, I request you earnestly to note it down. I will take questions at the end because currently I am not able to see you. At the end, I will stop sharing my screen and take on all your questions. So now let us see what MCQs should have and what we should be doing with examples. Test understanding of concepts and not just recall of facts. Test core learning and not peripheral facts. Use unfamiliar contexts to identify real learning. Test what is intended to be tested. Frame the question in an unambiguous and technically correct way. Test specific alternate conceptions, misconceptions, and student errors. Use real-life authentic contexts instead of contrived ones. Use stimulus materials as needed and test higher-order skills. Use authentic data, maps, graphs, or any other information. Use age-appropriate content, context, as well as language. So obviously, we should not be using words that we wouldn't have used in the class. That we need to be very careful of. So role of good questions in an assessment. Good questions can influence how students learn and stimulate thinking. Good questions can distinguish mechanical learning from learning with understanding. Good questions can diagnose misconceptions and common errors. I already told you there will be a stem, there will be an option, there will be the key and the distractors. And there is this one example. Roma has 3 solid balls of equal weight. The sizes of the 3 balls are shown below. If ball 2 sinks in water, which of the other balls will definitely sink in water? The answer is only ball 1. So decide the learning outcomes that you want to test. Eliminate ambiguities. Create distractors based firmly on what you want to test, keeping in mind the uniformity in their form and length. Make sure your wrong answers can be explained justifiably. Be prepared to give feedback for the correct answer, explaining why it is right. So the first feature that we saw, test the understanding of concepts and not just recall of facts. So would anybody want to unmute and give me the answer to this? The time and date in India in the picture shown is likely to be close to which of the following? Anybody can unmute and give the answer. Anybody may please unmute. Or if you think you want to write in the chat, I am open to that. I have opened my second device, so I'll be able to read your chat. Sorry, I'm not able to hear you.
Ma'am, 6 p.m. or 6 a.m. November 10th.
We were saying option A, 6 a.m. November 10. And let's see what the correct answer is. The correct answer requires the student to see and understand that the sun rises in the east, so the country sees light before the western side. Students should have understood that there is a tilt in the earth, right? And in November, the sun is away from the, you get slanting rays. They need to be able to then understand the context and determine the time and date when the picture may have been taken. But yes, I will give it right as 6 a.m. on November 10. Now look at this. Is this a good question? This is from a higher grade. That was grade 6. This is from grade 12. So the rich will make temples for Shiva. What shall I, a poor man, do? My legs are pillars, the body the shrine, the head a cupola of gold. Which of the following Veerashaiva teachings is reflected in the above vachan? Encourages idol worship, argues against ritual worship, speaks of equal treatment for all, speaks against the wealthy and the powerful. That's one. The second option for the same thing is a passage where the Veerashaiva tradition, a new movement emerged in the 12th century, blah, 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 vachans written in the women and men joined the movement, help us grasp the heritage. Which of the following statements concerning the practice is true? It first became popular in Kerala. A Basavana was in charge of it. The followers were known as Nayanars. They were in favor of reincarnation. So I'd like you to quickly put in your answers in the chat box. Example 1 or example 2. Which of these is a good question? You may put it in the chat box. I am able to see the chat. Just have to type a number. So I can see someone having written number 2. All right. Now I have varied responses. Number 2 is a passage-based text, which is asking you to simply find which of the following practices is true. But number 1, which I can see many people also having attempted, starting with Parvati ma'am, Sarita Yadav, Soraya, Pooja Duggal, and Zainab. All of you, I can see having chosen number 1, which is the correct answer, is as a good question, because here the child has to read the vachan, the child has to understand what the teachings stand for, and then choose the correct answer. Look at this. A MCQ should test core learning objectives and not a mere recall of facts. So look at this, recall of a trivial fact. Where was Meena Mata disease first seen? Just recall. And look at this, recall of an important fact. For certain diseases caused by bacteria, certain antibiotics are prescribed. Antibiotics are medicines that, and you will obviously see what is expected from these answers. So I would not expect you to answer this question, but I am showing you the difference here that while sample questions 2 and 3 test recollection of knowledge, outcomes of both these questions are different. The first one is just simple recall. But the second one is making you recall the meaning. What is the use of antibiotics? It's not simple recall. It's not trivial recall. Here you are applying, you are talking on in second example, does not have any implication on conceptual understanding, but the ability to learn other questions. In question 2, you are checking on ability to learn. However, question 3 tests ability of recall of an important aspect. What is the use of the antibiotic? So distractors like those which you can see here in example 3 are those which are close possible options. Now look at this third feature that we have of MCQs. Use unfamiliar context to identify real learning. So we have 2 more questions here. One is a very textbookish question. The gravitational pull of the moon is dash that of the earth. And most of us are well aware, in most textbooks also we know that 1/6 of the is the correct answer. But when you are talking with an unfamiliar context, if you are standing on the moon holding a pen and you let it go, what will happen to it? Come on, tell me, what will happen to it? A, B, C, or D? In the chat, you can put in A, B, C, or D. If you don't chat with me, I feel very lost in a training. That's why I'm using my second device. And I can see Parvati ma'am very actively typing in a B, and there's an A. Wow. So Saraya ma'am feels it's A. Alina ma'am thinks it's a B. Come on, science teachers. Sarita Yadav ma'am thinks B. Shimna ma'am thinks B. Hemal ma'am also thinks B, but Fatima ma'am thinks A. Lovely, independent thinkers. Lovely. Anu ma'am says it's a D. It will float towards the earth. Poonam Singh ma'am, I think it is A, and I think she is the one writing A. Rosina ma'am thinks it is B. So let's see what we could be expecting. A question like sample 5 can help in uncovering whether students have understood the concept. Thoughtfully designed distractors based on alternate student conceptions about gravity in space can help in capturing specific incorrect notions. Think about what would happen. 1/6 of the Earth's gravity is on the moon. But what will happen? Think about it. I think tomorrow all the science teachers can tell us in school what would happen. Will it fall to the ground if you drop it? Science teachers, tomorrow there's homework for you from today's training. So test what is intended to be tested. Now look at this. I love this question at sample 6. Hema cut a ribbon of length 0.1 meter into 10 equal pieces. How long would each piece be? And this is a typical Khyati question. Why? Because you look at the options. All the 4 options are confusing. 1 meter, 1 centimeter, 10 meters, 10 centimeters, just confusing. This also tells us that the teacher may probably be weak in math or may not be knowing math. So the teacher has also decided to put meter and centimeter, not knowing the correct measurement. But look at sample question 7. Test what is intended to be tested. The question has 1 meter, 0.1 meter. All the 4 options are in meters. Test what is intended to be tested. Frame the questions in an unambiguous, technically correct way. Now look at this sample question number 8. There's a timeline given with inventions or discoveries of different things. At the bottom of the timeline, what are we asking? Which of these inventions was made more than 70 years after the invention of the bicycle, but more than 50 years before the invention of the space shuttle? Which of the answers is correct? A, B, C, or D? Okay, the bicycle you can see is 1859, just in case it's not clear. And space shuttle is 1981. 70 years after the bicycle and 50 years before the space shuttle. Let me see the chat. I love people chatting, yeah. Come on. I feel the training is not going fine. I feel people are not interested. So Parvati ma'am says helicopter. But she doesn't know. So would somebody want to unmute? Okay, Soraya ma'am says rocket. And again, there is somebody, Miss Y, saying helicopter. I'll tell you, this is a very ambiguous question. There is no discovery or invention 70 years after the bicycle. Neither is there anything exactly 50 years before the space shuttle. So no matter what you write between the bicycle and the space shuttle, approximately between those 70 and 50 years, we have to give it correct. It could be helicopter, it could be rocket. Both the answers would be correct. It is benefit of doubt, but the question is not technically correct and it is very, very ambiguous. We have to avoid these kind of questions. So that brings us to sample question 9. So there is a passage here. Robotic cars are no longer a distant dream. A small LKAS camera beside the rear view mirror monitors the road markings on either side and feeds data to a computer. LKAS applies correct steering torque to keep car in the center of the lane. ACC radar sensors behind the Honda badge monitor the distance from the car in front. If the gap with the car in front decreases, the car automatically brakes and then accelerates again to maintain a safe distance. Until now, cars that drive themselves have been the stuff of science fiction movies. However, from March 2006, drivers will be able to buy a car that does just that. Japanese car manufacturer Honda has developed a car that can drive itself on motorways. A tiny camera by the rearview mirror scans the white lines that mark out road lanes and help to keep the camera in between them. Help to keep the car in between them. So look at the advantage of a rearview mirror that is developed by Honda. I already have some answers coming in the chat. Steer the car within the prescribed lane, cross bumps with little problem, reproduce photographs of any road, maneuver the car only without a driver. Now this, it says, is a technically incorrect framing of the stem. We already know about the stem being incorrect. We have to learn to frame a correct stem. Why is the stem incorrect? Because the passage tells you that it is going to mark only the lanes and help keep the car in between them. But look at the kind of questions we are asking. Test specific alternate conceptions, misconceptions, and student errors. Look at sample 10. Which of the following are examples of respiration? Humans use oxygen and release carbon dioxide. Plants use carbon dioxide and release oxygen. Burning dry leaves uses oxygen and releases carbon dioxide. And here we already know that the question tests whether students can identify examples of respiration. Students often have a misconception that only humans use oxygen for respiration. Plants use carbon dioxide for respiration. And option C tends to capture this misconception. Use real-life authentic contexts instead of contrived ones. So 5 grams of camphor is taken on a tray and burnt. What is the weight of products obtained? Instead, now this is contrived use of a text. Instead, good real-life context can be used. Here are 2 images of the same packet of curds taken at an interval of 2 days. The packet had been left undisturbed at room temperature on the kitchen shelf. We don't know which photograph was taken first and which was taken 2 days later.
Environment-friendly and of e-waste.
Is somebody viewing a movie simultaneously? Very bad, huh? So here are these 2 images. You can see the puffed swollen bag and you can see a flat packet full of curds. Now, which of the 2 packets will weigh more? And you can see how the student is expected to think, because we don't have information provided to the child. The child has to think. When mummy keeps curds at home, how would a packet of curds look like? And probably how it will look 2 days later. If we don't know the answer, we should also try and experiment at home. That's called experiential learning for us. But when you look at sample question 11 and 12, both test a concept of conservation of mass in an open or closed system. However, context used in sample question 11 is a bit contrived. It doesn't specify how the products are obtained over here in question 11. Doesn't tell you how camphor is obtained, doesn't tell you how it is burnt, etc. Okay, how the gaseous products are weighed, whether it is an open system or a closed one. It is unlikely that this would encounter the experiment in real life. On the other hand, question 12 is simple, a very popular context of curds puffing up, tests the concept of conservation of mass within a closed system. Since the packet was not open, the microbes used the curds inside to grow and multiply. Nothing would have entered or escaped the packet. The mass of the 2 packets will obviously remain the same. The context used is authentic, allows students to apply that concept in real life. So I want you to therefore go back to the same figure and look at the options in the second one, sample 12. And you will be able to see that option D is the correct answer. Then use stimulus materials as needed and test higher order thinking skills. Would somebody want to read this out loud? There's a passage here. Any volunteers?
મને વંચાતું જ નથી.
May I?
Yeah, please do.
You want me to read out the passage, right?
Yes, ma'am.
The amateur scientist. Sample question 13, item using in authentic context. At Alameda Street, some ants came out around the bathtub. I thought, here's a great opportunity to observe some of them. I put some sugar on the other end of the bathtub and sat there the whole afternoon until an ant finally found the sugar. It's only a question of patience. The moment the ant found the sugar, I picked up a colored pencil that I had ready. I had previously done experiments indicating that the ants don't bother about pencil marks. They walk right over them. So I knew I wasn't disturbing anything. And behind where the ant went, I drew a line so I could tell where his something missing. When the
Something is
next
missing.
ant to find the sugar began to go back, I marked his trail with another color. By the way, he followed the first ant's return trail back rather than his own incoming trail. My theory is that when an ant has found some food, he leaves a much stronger trail than when he's just wandering around.
Thank you, ma'am. That was really very kind of you to read out. But then there's something more if you could add on.
This second ant was in a great hurry and followed pretty much the original trail. But because he was going so fast, he would go straight out as if he were gliding when the trail was wiggly. Often, as the ant was gliding, he would find the trail again. Already it was evident that the second ant's return was slightly straighter. With successive ants, the same improvement of the trail by hurriedly and carelessly following it occurred. I followed 8 or 10 ants with my pencil until their trails became a neat line right along the bathtub. It's something like sketching. You draw a clumsy line at first, then you go over it a few times, and it makes a nice line after a while.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Sorry, you're
much.
joking, Mr. Freeman. Welcome.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So this is the Feynman by Richard Feynman. And some of this has been modified for readability just to make sure that everyone can read. So assuming that the theory proposed was correct, what would have happened if the sugar was suddenly removed? And look at the 4 options there. Ants will keep following the trails made by other ants. Some ants will start wandering. Ants will follow the trail for a little while and then start wandering. Ants will start leaving even stronger trails in the absence of. So people can answer if they wish to in the chat. It seems people don't like the session today. See, we are giving such a big passage. Thank you, Madhu ma'am, Sneha ma'am, and Dinah ma'am for answering that question. We are using stimulus material as and when needed, and we are not testing reading skills. We are giving a passage and we are asking the students to apply their knowledge. We have told them that the ant has sugar. We have told them that the ant will follow the trail of another ant. We are telling them that when the ant has food, the trail is stronger. When the ant has no food, it will be wandering around. We have given them basic information they would need to remember. And finally, we have asked them what would happen if the sugar was suddenly removed. So for some time we have given sugar, but ultimately we have removed the sugar. What would then
कहाँ
happen?
चलना है? कहाँ भी चलना?
Somebody needs to mute, please. कोई कहीं जा रहा है. हम तो 6:30 बजे जाएंगे. Thank you.
I think it will be C. The
Yes, a
ants
lot
will
of
follow-
people have written C in the chat, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you. And at number 9, we have using authentic data, graphs, maps, etc. And if you look at sample question 14, item using data from an authentic report. We don't use any random thing. So look at this, it is a UN report that the number of refugees migrating as a result of conflict or insecurity has never been higher. This graph provides information about global crisis. You can see the list of countries on both sides, countries of origin, countries of asylum. And you can see the kind of graph where people originate from and where they go, and the figures on the sides are in millions. So for example, people from the Syrian Arab Republic move to Turkey, they move to Lebanon, they move to Jordan, they move to others. People from South Sudan, you can see the yellow arrows, to Ethiopia, Kenya, and you can see Sudan and Uganda. You can then see, you are able to check on the movement in the graph. With that, based on this, the majority of the almost 10 million refugees found safety in. And you have asked a question based on an infographic. And like I told you in the beginning, when you give an infographic, when you give a picture, if you think students can identify or answer the question without the visual, use it. But when you are giving a visual, when you are giving an infographic, it must be important. So it should be available for reference in front of the students, and then the question would come. Now here the students are expected to apply the knowledge of countries and their geographical locations, because we are not asking them country to country here in the options. Look at the options. We are giving regions, countries separated by sea, neighboring countries, African countries, European countries. Nowhere are we saying Sudan or Lebanon or Iran or Jordan. We are asking them to see where 10% of the population is moving to. And we are asking them to do some mathematical application as well. So the students need to apply their knowledge. This is called testing higher order. Interpreting a graph or an infographic is very easy. Use authentic data, map, graph, and other information. This we got from science. This I would like to acknowledge the science teachers. They had shared this with me for a previous training I had taken. So the pie charts here show the composition of 100 grams of 4 different foods. Which food provides the most energy? And you can see the answer is very easy, because carbohydrate, fat and oil, protein and water. The child should know what provides more energy. So the key takeaways up till here, obviously I will not show you age appropriate context, content and language, because I have a video towards the end of my session a little later where I will show you this as well. But these are the 9 things we have taken from the current MCQ. Test understanding of concepts and not recall. Test core learning, not peripheral facts, not what is not important. Use unfamiliar context to identify real learning. Test what you are intending to test. Frame the question unambiguously, technically correct. Use correct language and grammar. Test specific alternate conceptions, misconceptions, and student error. Use real life context instead of contrived ones. Use authentic data, map, graph, and age appropriate language. With this, I would like to take you to case study questions as well, because with case studies, we do have MCQs in certain subjects. So there's this beautiful twisted building. The following pictures are shown. And the ground floor of the building contains the main entrance and has a room for shops. Above the ground floor, there are 20 stories containing apartments. The plan of each story is similar to the plan of the ground floor, but each story or each floor has a slightly different orientation from the story below it. The cylinder contains the elevator shaft and a landing on each floor. So we have a unit of the twisted building. And with the twisted building, we are providing a stimulus. The pictures are side views of the twisted building on the right-hand side. You can see two pictures. From which direction has side view 1 been drawn? You can see north, south, east, west also shown on your twisted building. And question 2 says, from which direction has side view 2 been drawn? And this is sourced from PISA related items on mathematics. So mathematics teachers, this is your kitty, where you have a unit on the twisted building with directions. So certain good practices are recommended around use of case studies and assessment. A good case should be based on real life context. It should be taken from an authentic source as far as possible. It should quote the actual source from where it has been sourced for reference. It should be encouraging for students to spend time reading and understanding. It should use a combination of text and images, photographs, graphs, infographics, tables as appropriate content. Most questions should be answerable by going through the case and not independently. A good case should have up to 5 questions depending on the length of the case. In language papers, passages may have more questions. Have between 1 to 5 paragraphs of text material that the students are expected to read and answer related questions. Be relevant to current times and not outdated. Don't ask things of the earlier centuries in other subjects unless it's a history concept that you are testing. A good case should not be contrived. It should not have material that is biased against any gender or community in any way, and the vocabulary should not be inappropriate. So we have a social science case study here. The picture shown depicts traditional agricultural practices of the Apatani tribe in the eastern Himalayas, in Arunachal, at a height of more than 1500 meters above sea level. The annual rainfall in this region is about 1750 millimeters. The traditional field shown in this picture is wet cultivation in irrigated valleys and on slightly terraced land around the valley. So how then do the Apatanis manage to irrigate the valleys and hills and terraces? Do they store rainwater? Do they have some kind of rainwater harvesting systems? Do they divert it in streams, springs, channels? Do they have erection of dams on major rivers? Do they transport water from lowland plains through pipes? What do they do? If any of the social science teachers would like to attempt the question, I'll be more than happy. Or for that matter, any of the teachers across any of the subjects. See, this particular question needs the child to understand about the Eastern Himalayas because I'm talking about Arunachal Pradesh. So it's grade 9 geography, Eastern Himalayas. Height, I am showing you 1500 meters and above sea level. Annual rainfall, I am showing as 1750 millimeters. I am showing the kind of cultivation in a valley with terraced farming. So concepts learned in grade 8 and 9 are being looked into. So I can see Hemal ma'am writing B. Thank you, Hemal ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, right.
Okay, and Miss Y also says B. And I would love others to write. Now, if B would be the correct answer, then what crop is most likely to be cultivated in the field shown above? Strawberry, rice, bamboo, or millet? This is also a recall of concepts because somewhere in the text they would have spoken about the staple crop of this place, of this region. Many of us are, I can see, writing rice. Brilliant educators that we have at Gopi Birla. So the key takeaways: use information related to an engaging real life context from an authentic source. Ensure that the case is relevant, not outdated. Frame questions that can be answered based on the given information, not independently. So again, I have something for you. Recall the correct feature of Harappan town planning. Look at this example. Consider the following statement. The creation of urban centers was the hallmark of Harappan civilization. Harappan cities were well known for meticulous designed drainage system. Harappan roads and streets were organized roughly according to a grid design. What assertion statement concerning the Harappan civilization is true or are true? Only one, only two, both, or all? Any answers? Kashmira ma'am says 1 and 2. Sajida ma'am says only 2. Suraya ma'am 4. Daina ma'am 3. Sneha ma'am 4. Prerna ma'am says 4. So this question is actually a grade 12 question. But since the Harappan civilization is being taught from the primary level to the senior secondary level, a lot of things can be tested. Now here the learning objective or the assessment objective is given there. Recall the correct feature of Harappan town planning. And town planning is recalled very clearly with statement number 4. So good questions we need to keep in mind are aligned to the testing objective. Now the question, the testing objective here is the student's ability to recall about the members of the Constituent Assembly. Which of the following statements regarding the Constituent Assembly members is true? And there are 4 options. This requires a lot of thought into the students' knowledge levels. This is again a grade 12 question. And the second example, initially the Constituent Assembly comprised of 389 members. Within 6 months, the number became 300. What was the reason for the change? Which of the following supports this statement? This is again from grade 12. So anybody who wishes to may feel free to answer. Otherwise, I can move forward also. But interaction always makes me happy. Unfortunately, I am not able to see all of you, but interaction always makes me happy. Okay, Zainab ma'am says number 2. And Miss Y says 3. Nonetheless, you may refresh the Constituent Assembly and you may understand. Now, this I would like to thank Pandey ma'am. She had given me this at one point in time. दशानन शब्द के लिए सही समास विग्रह का चयन कीजिए. And there are these 4 options she had given. 10 है आनंद जिसके अर्थात रावण. 10 और आनंद. 10 आननों का समूह. क और ग दोनों सही है. The Department of Hindi can tell us this answer. So Poonam Singh ma'am says gha. Miss Y says gha. And I can see Hemal ma'am writing 4. Sarita Yadav g. Kashmira ma'am says g. And I think the correct answer would be 4 gha, because the Hindi department is very clearly writing gha. Sarita Dubey ma'am says ka. And Jayashree ma'am says gha. Maybe the Hindi teachers could tell us, give us more clarification and more input. Then good questions need to be aligned to the intended difficulty level. So there is a Kabir ka doha. Kal kare so aaj kare so ab. Pal mein pralay hoegi, bahuri karoge kab. So do tomorrow's work today, today's work now. If the moment is lost, then how will the work be done? From the lines quoted above, one can conclude that Saint Kabir's ideas were primarily about dash. And I can see C coming up in the chat. Simple life lessons, lessons on bringing political change, business lessons, lessons on social causes. And a lot of people are writing 3 or simple life lessons. So this is actually again from grade 12 history, where Kabir is shown in the Bhakti Sufi movement chapter, and Kabir being a Bhakti saint. However, in grade 10 also or 9, I don't know which year, in Hindi they do Kabir ke dohe. And I very well remember Poonam Singh ma'am explaining Kabir ke dohe in the olden days in the classes. So that's what brought me to put this question here. So here we have the data again from the World Bank of 2 countries in GDP and GDP per capita. And again, despite having a higher total income than Germany, Japan has a lower PCI. What is the reason for this? This you can tell me that Japan has a bigger population. I would still accept it. So coming to the advantages and disadvantages of MCQs. MCQs allow wide sampling of content. The problem is well structured. Difficulty level could be flexible. It is a reliable, efficient, and objective scoring method. It provides scores easily understood and transformed as needed. However, MCQs have disadvantages. Difficult to construct plausible alternative responses. So to get 4 responses of the same size, very close options is really difficult, time consuming. It makes, it does become susceptible to guessing. Students just start guessing. Sometimes diagnostic information may not be provided, and narrow facets of performance are measured. So I have this video to show you how to create killer MCQs. Are you able to hear it?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay. I'll stop sharing it. Just give me a moment. I'll stop sharing it and reshare. So all of you will be able to hear it. Just give me a moment. I think now it will be audible to you. Let me just play it. Is it audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
How to make a killer
Thank you.
multiple choice test question by Academy of Learning Career College. This video will show you how to make one of the most common test question types, the multiple choice question. First, let's break down the parts of a multiple choice question. Check out this example. This is called the stem. It's the initial statement or question that requires a response. These are called alternatives. They are the different response options to the stem. One of the alternatives is the correct answer. It's the right response to the stem. While the rest are called distractors. They are incorrect responses to the stem and serve to throw off the unprepared test taker. Great, you may be wondering, but how do I make a killer multiple choice question? Here are 10 tips to use as guidelines. Number 1. Be sure to present a clear question or problem in the stem of your test item. You want to make certain that a test taker who knows the subject matter will be able to answer correctly. Number 2. Don't introduce new language. For example, if the course refers to horses as horses, but then the test question refers to stallions and fillies, which are types of horses, the test taker will be unfairly confused. Number 3. Whenever possible, avoid writing negative stated stems. For example, which of the following does not mean a male horse can be rephrased as which of the following means a female horse, and will generally result in test responses that better reflect what has been learned. Number 4. If you have many multiple choice questions in your test, vary the position of the correct answer. The easiest way to do this is to shuffle around the alternatives for each question after you've created the entire test. Number 5. Keep the alternatives a consistent length and format within the same test item. Generally, we have a tendency to make the correct answer longer, more detailed, and more complex than the other alternatives. Test takers pick up on this and tend to select those longer alternatives as a result. Number 6. All the alternatives in a test item should be plausible and mutually exclusive. Carefully chosen, credible-seeming alternatives will help you confirm that your learners have grasped the finer points of what you've taught. Number 7. Limit your use of the alternatives none of the above and all of the above. These are lazy alternatives and generally frustrate test takers needlessly. Number 8. Consider presenting a chart, a reading excerpt, or a short case, and writing a series of questions in which test takers have to interpret what you've presented in order to select the correct answers. These questions are more difficult to create and, unsurprisingly, can be the best kinds of multiple choice questions for assessing learners. Number 9. Proofread. When you are done creating your entire test, run through it, or better yet, have a trusted colleague take your test. It is easy to make small errors when we create a test, and it is also easy for those errors to totally undermine test questions. So, try to catch them before you accidentally frustrate your test takers. And lastly, number 10. Throughout your test creation process, remember that your goal is to find out how well your learners have achieved the objectives of the course. Your goal is not necessarily to write challenging questions or a hard test. A well-written test question is difficult for an unprepared test taker and simple for a well-prepared test taker. And that's how you write a killer multiple choice test question.
So with this, we come to the last part of saying thank you and goodbye. I would like to express my gratitude once again to our campus head, Dr. Mrs. Veena Srivastava, for joining us virtually and giving me the opportunity to present this topic in front of brilliant educators like yourselves. I would also like to express my gratitude to our principal, Mrs. Madhu Watke, who has joined us here today and has actively participated in our interactions. Thank you so much, ma'am. I would thank all of you educators for your interaction, either by unmuting or in the chat box, or by patiently listening in through all the examples. Thank you very much, dear educators. I am open to questions, comment, and any other interaction or feedback you wish to give me. In fact, if you have anything for me where I need to improve as a feedback, I'd love to hear from you. The floor is open to all. You may choose to unmute.
Wonderful
Hello.
session, Khyati. Wonderful. You have covered all the characteristics of a good MCQ, a competent MCQ, by using relevant examples and variety of examples. Very engaging.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That means a lot.
Thank you, Khyati ma'am. It was really engaging session. We also were on our this thing, always, giving the answers and thinking, okay, which option would be the correct one. So it was quite engaging session. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. I have shared the attendance link in the chat in case if you wish to fill in also. Thank you, Hemal ma'am. Yes, Alina ma'am, I thought you were unmuting.
Thank you, Khyati ma'am. It was a nice, engaging, and well depth in informed and explained MCQs. It will be really helpful for us, especially now that we are having our exams coming up too. It will be really, really helpful. It was very nice.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Zainab ma'am. Thank you, Zainab ma'am.
Thank you, Khyati ma'am.
Thank you, Poonam ma'am.
It was a lovely session and it will be very useful for us while setting MCQ papers. We will remember all your guidelines. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy ma'am. Very well presented and very informative. Kept us all glued to this presentation of yours. And we can see so much hard work done by you, and you're helping us throughout, and this making our journey of being teachers much more fruitful. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Surya ma'am. I can see a lot of people giving lovely feedback in the chat box as well. Thank you to all those of you who prefer to chat. It's been truly an honor to be here with all of you. And we still have about 2 minutes left in case if you wish to speak or write or ask or comment. Yes, Jayashree ma'am, did you unmute?
Much, ma'am.
Thank you, Khyati ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Sneha ma'am. You set the tone for this session.
Today my voice was gone, इसलिए मैं कुछ ज्यादा बोल नहीं पा रही हूँ, लेकिन आपसे मैंने बहुत कुछ सीखा है और आज आगे भी सीखते रहेंगे और आज का सेशन बहुत ही अच्छा था. थैंक यू सो मच मैम.
Thank you, ma'am.
Khyati ma'am, it was a wonderful and nice thinking skill developing questions and everything you have given, and nice references. Through the references, how we can involve the children with a different way. So it was superb. We really learned through the pictures, through the ideas. I especially love the global earth and the timing things. So it was really very nice.
Thank you, Kashmira ma'am.
कहते मैम और एक बात कहना चाहूंगी, आपकी जो ओपनिंग स्लाइड थी ना मल्टीपल चॉइस क्वेश्चंस की स्वयंवर वाली, सबसे बेस्ट. तो उसको जो आगे का अपने आप इंटरेस्टिंग होता चला गया. वेरी नाइस.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am. Yes, Poonam ma'am.
Wonderful session, ma'am.
Thank you.
थोड़ी सी कंफ्यूज हो रही थी मैं इन बिटवीन सारे ऑप्शंस में, इसलिए मैं आंसर नहीं कर पा रही थी. मतलब सबका देख रही थी, बट अच्छे थे सब एमसीक्यूज. एक्चुअली ये सब मेरे बेटे के लिए मुझे बहुत ज्यादा इन्फॉर्मेटिव लगा, तो वो भी सुन रहा था, मतलब अभी था मेरे साथ ना. तो वो भी सुन रहा था ये सब कुछ. तो बोला कि आपको ज्योग्राफी भी पढ़ाते हैं मैम? मैंने कहा हाँ, हमको सब सब्जेक्ट पढ़ने पड़ते हैं स्कूल में. सो थैंक यू मैम.
My pleasure. So I guess it is 6:30 sharp, and just as we started at 5, we end at 6:30. Thank you once again for joining in and being so patient, being so cool, and so interactive throughout today's session. Goodbye and God bless.